Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Finance Committee's regularly scheduled meeting of March 12th, 2025. Since this is a hybrid meeting, we will read the notice. This is to formally advise that is required by Massachusetts General Law, Chapters 30A, Sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Finance Committee will hold a public meeting on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in Conference Room A at Town Hall. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided below. And again, since this is a hybrid meeting, it will be recorded to assist in the preparation of minutes, and all votes must be done by roll call. So to establish a quorum, John?
Here.
Nate?
Here.
George?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Raphael?
Here.
I am here as well. We do have a quorum. Tonight, and I don't see anybody from the public attending, and as I noted, Alyssa Mullen is ill today, so she is absent. There is nobody from the public in attendance, so we'll dispense with that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, probably most of the rest of the meeting, to Jennifer.
Hi, good evening. We have two transfers tonight. They were in your packet and not sure if you were able to take a look at them. So the first one is we're requesting a transfer from the park full-time wages for 27,000 will be moved over to professional and technical. And there's a lengthy description here, but in short is that the DPW has to come up with a beach management plan. It's required, I think, from Concom or something. It's in here. And so in order to do that, we need to transfer the money from the wages to professional tech. And there is excess wages in the parks. Usually it says full-time wages, so they probably have a an opening. It's only 27,000, but I also know that, with their seasonal wages is usually there as well too, so it all goes in. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions on this particular transfer? Hearing none. I hear a motion to approve.
I'll move it.
Yeah. And I'll sort of put Mr. Perkins as the second. Again, roll call vote. John?
Aye.
Nate? George?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye. Aye.
Raphael? I'm an aye as well, carry 6-0. Second transfer is also related to highways.
Yes, so we're requesting to transfer 30,000 from full-time wages to repairs and maintenance. There's been several unforeseen repair and maintenance items in the various buildings, town hall, we've had a plumbing issue and things of that nature. So we're requesting the $30,000 transfer to make that line item whole.
Are there any questions on this particular transfer?
Not on the particular transfer, but just a philosophy in general. So is the town leadership in agreement that they're just going to leave headcount as it is to be able to just continue having, the ability to transfer money because of unfilled vacancies?
So let me back up a little bit. So we do budget for positions, right? And the thinking is if we find that we can't find somebody and say the position's been open for a year or two, as you know, we had a
Right,
problem
right.
with mechanics. We don't want to decrease that budget because that just takes away from our flexibility, gets turned back to free cash. You're decreasing the budget. Now you don't have any opportunity to do anything with like the mechanic, or we need these full-time positions. And so what it does is it gives us flexibility. And so when you think about it from a manager's perspective, when we go into town meeting and we vote the budget, we're voting wages, expenses, so we can't expend over that, right? But that does tie our hands to actually manage effectively. So when you think about it, we've had a year where we've had plumbing issues here. We've had, I think, an issue over, in the library, in the senior center, and their budget ran short.
Well, and also the police generator. I mean, there's been
Right, so,
Yeah.
right, but, so what we want to do is, we look to see where there might be excess funds. Now, this doesn't mean that this has been an open position for 3 years and we can't fill it. It just might have been an open position for a little while. For example, take the recreation, if you see a transfer there, now we have someone who left and then somebody filling their position, so there's always excess funds there. But you know, we don't want to decrease the budget and really tie our hands. Because then, you know, we need these positions. And so, and especially, and let me just finish with this. So with highway, right, we're transferring $30,000. Now, we've had a problem, if you remember last year when we put the budget together, we're having an issue trying to find people with CDL licenses,
Mhm.
right? It's an issue. It's an issue
Right.
with the bus
Okay.
drivers and
Sure.
everything. So we don't want to take those positions out of the budget and decrease the budget because we actually need them. So we've been thinking of ways where we hire somebody, we actually added a position, we want to, you know, train them up and have them get the CDL while they're working here. So we are looking at ways to doing this. Economic Development Director has been open for probably a couple of years. We just can't find the right
Yeah,
fit. And again, we don't want to decrease that budget.
another one, another example is the benefits administration person that we had hoped to hire. Literally, the person hired and had a family situation develop and had to leave. One day.
Oh, boy.
So, you know, it's just unfortunate.
And that's a position we need. And then the other thing that we look at is say, we do have an open position. I will tell you in the treasurer collector's office, this is a conversation that we had now we're down a position. We might be down and someone is going to be retiring and in tax bills are due and we have beach stickers, right?
Mhm.
So we're like, what do we do? Well, it might take a while to fill that position. We're not going to decrease the budget from that position because we absolutely need it. But we might bring somebody in, somebody who's retired, that's worked in the
Mhm.
treasurer collector's office that can help us through the hump. So we're always thinking of innovative ways to fill that gap. But the last thing we want to do is decrease this budget with needed positions, even though they might be hard to fill at times.
Do all the departments have the job recs and vacancies that they need open and published and available?
What do you mean?
Staffing?
Yes.
Do they have?
So if you go into not Jennifer's office, Sarah O'Reilly's office,
Mhm.
they're all on the board.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, the open, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she works very aggressively to fill all those positions, and sometimes they're just hard. You know, again, I think for good reasons, we're keeping the bar high. I know the golf department has had a number of positions open, and they're saying, if they can't find the right person,
Don't hire.
I'm not gonna hire them.
Is contracting any of these an option?
Well, I think we do look at that, depending on the specific situation. I can't tell you right now the specific situation in highway or recreation. But I know that it's, the community is expecting a certain level of service. And we
Absolutely.
want to provide that. And if we can't find somebody, we're gonna find other ways to do that. And so I think that is like a general conversation that we have. The other thing I want to mention is when you think about running a business, right? Our budget's over $100 million when you include the schools. You know, usually when you're running a business, you know, you have the ability, you want to make sure whatever budget you set, that the budget funds itself. You don't want to
Mhm.
bring in outside funding sources. You don't want to use one-time revenue to fund the budget. So when we're transferring money around like this, we're not funding the budget from outside sources. It's funding itself. And every year you're gonna find line items that have deficiencies and then line items that have excesses. So it helps us manage and make those decisions.
Oh, no, I can absolutely relate to that.
Yeah.
We have extended contracts for another 8 months to 3 outside consultants that we desperately need because we can't fill engineering spots.
Right.
So absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
Mr. Anderson? Gutierrez? And if there's no other discussion, roll call vote. John?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Raphael?
Yeah, I
And I am an aye as well, carry 6-0.
Thank you.
Like to let
Yeah.
you go on that one.
So,
All right.
I'm gonna move right into the balance of the votes to recommend articles at the annual town meeting. First up is Article number 1, which is the snow and ice.
Can everybody see this? Well, George, can you see it?
No, I can, yes.
All right.
Nice job.
I'm very excited. I shared my screen. So we've had to make some changes to the warrant. I think you have some open items where you had some pending questions, so I'm gonna walk you through this right now. So I'm gonna take you to Article I think it's Article 1, actually. So I have been working with the DPW because we do have a snow and ice deficit. And so right now, we will need, in order to fund that deficit, will be 70,000 in free cash, and that's for Article 1.
It's pretty straightforward.
Questions?
Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to recommend Article 1 as printed in the warrant?
I'll recommend it.
Okay,
Second.
Anderson. I assume there's no other questions. John,
Aye.
Nate,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Raphael.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, carry 6-0 with 1 abstention. Next up is Article number 8.
Okay, so we've made some changes to Article 8. No, I need to go over the budget. I made some.
Oh, you
changes
made
to
some
the
changes. Oh,
made some changes to the
go
operating
to Article 2 then.
Article 2, we talked about energy, we increased that last week, right? Because I've made some,
That was the $75,000 because we owe,
yeah, we did talk about
right, the
that, yeah,
cut, we owed the vendor a cut of the
right.
gross.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk, so we've had a couple issues come up with the cable fund. And we needed to redo the cable fund budget. And so the Information Technology Department oversees the cable fund budget. We've been working a lot with the department to make sure that their expenses are getting charged to where they should be charged. And so we had another meeting because some things came up, so I had to shift some things around. So I had to increase the information technology budget, the expense line item, by $35,000. So I just wanted to let you know, that's MO2, it's on like page 10. I have it up on the screen.
Okay,
And I can explain a little bit more. I don't want to get off too much on cable, so I can walk you through the numbers if that's okay. Okay,
okay.
all right, and then the other one is I increased the debt service by $150,000. So we have outstanding debt. Last year, we borrowed $8 million. We borrowed money for the golf course, we borrowed money for water facilities, and we borrowed some money for Route 28 water mains, which is in tandem with the SOAR project. And so that, it's a bond anticipation note. We borrowed it for a year, so we only owe interest. So that comes due in April. So every April I usually borrow or I'll bond. So now I look at where we are at with all the projects. And since we're really in the middle too of the water Route 28 and we're not ready to issue a bond, start paying back principal and interest. So we're going to borrow for another year. So when I do that, I look at, okay, what additional monies do we need? And we need an additional $5 million for Route 28 water mains with the SOAR project. I had originally estimated interest for $3.5 million. And we need, so it's $5 million, and then we need $3 million for Riverwalk Park. There's a borrowing authorization for them to finish that project. So
That
this
was
is
approved at the
prior town meeting.
prior town meeting, correct?
Right. So I'm borrowing that new money in April. And so I've estimated $150,000 in short-term interest. And so I had to add that to the regular debt service of where it says 482. The previous number was 482 minus 150. And what I'll do is and the Community Preservation Committee is very well aware of this and they voted it. So when we have the motion to fund the budget, we'll be bringing in 150,000 to fund the debt service. So I had to increase it in the general fund. And so those are the only two changes that I made to this article, and this should be all set. I don't know if you want to revote it or if you guys already voted it. I made changes. I just wanted to let you know.
I don't think there is a,
You already recommended.
yeah, we are, unless there's somebody who doesn't want to recommend the budget. I think we're good with our previous recommendation.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
and
Well,
thank you for, again, I mean, these are, it's the little details like this. I think this committee certainly appreciates that.
Thank you. I love to talk about debt. I'll talk about.
We're up to Article 8 then?
Okay, so all right, we're gonna go back to, Article 5. You've already voted it.
Right.
And so like I said, I added $60,000 to the expense budget for debt for the water.
Okay, I was wondering about that.
Water fund,
Okay.
yes. My original estimate of 3.5 million, and then I sat down, I usually talk to the department heads in like November, so I can get an idea for the budget. And then, as the project's like rolling along, and you'll see there's another article in here for an additional 2 million. Speaking with Jeff and Lori, I think that the cash for the next year, we're much better off with borrowing 5 million than 3.5. So you'll have 60,000 additional in the water budget.
Is that like at that's a 5% rate then?
4.
4? Okay.
That's part of the 150 or is that? separate?
In addition.
Right.
Yeah, my original estimate was 3.5 million, so I put, and then I upped it, well, I gotta borrow 5, so I have to add the interest to the 1.5
150.
million.
And $1.5 million. And because it's an enterprise budget, it has to have its own budget.
So the cable budget, I don't think you voted that though, did you?
No, we did
Right,
not.
because we knew we had issues here.
Right.
Okay, so, couple changes to the, cable budget. One is the wages. We've increased that a little bit. So as you know, we have a full-time person, communications director downstairs, that's paid from the cable budget, and they need some assistance. And they had money in there for part-time help, but they wanted to increase it for a full-time person. Now, this is completely supported by cable revenues from Comcast. So I increased the wage line item. And the expense line item, I increased. Now, you didn't look at this originally, but I've increased this somewhat significantly. We by
$96,400.
something like that, yeah. So we identified a couple different issues. One is that the person who does Channel 8, who actually televises Channel 8, we increased, he's a contractor, we had to increase significantly because they're starting to broadcast a lot more with Channel 8. They also have a couple of issues with some more expenses. We had to move some expenses around. Now it's kind of eluding me. That was the big one. And they needed more money for, I think it was, let me look.
Yeah.
Why don't you ask questions and let me look at my notes. I had it in my head and then I just lost it.
Well, yeah, under the previous, there were, by the way, because I just turned to the enterprise page here. So previously they had a part-timer in there for 50,000 plus overtime of 20,000. And this would add another 7,000 to those items. So instead of 50,000 in part-time, it's going to move, I'm assuming 57,000 into the full-time line. And then on the other side, you have,
Looking it up.
you're looking it up.
All right, let's go back. to the Spreadsheet.
Well, you only had 10,000 in there for equipment, which I thought was low.
Yeah, I mean, we increased several line items. I just wanted to be. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, the person who does Channel 8, and then they have, the other thing is, so one of the issues is, this is a new budget, right? So when they settled their contract with Comcast. And DOR was very strict in the last few years. There was a certain way they wanted us to handle this money. So we have it in an enterprise fund. So we have it all segregated. So this is kind of like a new budget. This all used to be washed through the general fund. And so we're still trying to get the budget right. And we pay Cape Media $197,000 a year from this budget, and it wasn't properly budgeted for. And so that was one of the reasons why we had to increase it. We had some money in there, but not everything. We have Zoom in here. We had to increase that. More people want to do webinars. And actually, the other issue that we increased is that, with the communications director, she does some marketing, so the radio spots that you hear, regarding the SOAR and the detours and things like that. That's they had to add that to the budget as well. And the parade, they record the parade. But I think the bigger issue is the Cape Media not properly being budgeted for. And also having to double the contract for the person who does the recording services for Channel 8.
Jennifer, can you explain to me, so maybe you just said it, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But on the expense side, that is going toward the Channel 9, Channel 8? or-
Channel 8.
Is there anything else that's using?
Yeah, so, and I'll just back up, and if you know this, just tell me to stop, but, every year, not every year, every 10 years, we negotiate a contract with Comcast. So they give us money, which is part of your cable bill, for us to do public education and government access, so we can get that information out. The other thing that wasn't budgeted for is we give Dennis Yarmouth like $21,000 a year for their education channel. That needed to be in there too. So that's what we use the money for. Is so when you see the select board meeting, the planning board meeting, and it's on Channel 8 and it's live, we actually have somebody here broadcasting, and we have to pay for them to do that. The other is Cape Media. Now they have Channel 27, and that's the public channel. So people go in and, I'm not sure what they do here, but I know in Falmouth, what they did, they would do like cooking shows, or they, would do monthly meetings with the town manager, or, a lot of public access. And so that's what Cape Cod Media does for us.
And you're absolutely right, and I remember some time ago, they used to have that, but there used to be people like local interviewers and things of that nature.
Right.
I haven't seen that in
I
years.
think it's Channel 27. So if you check, if you have cable, that's the other
Yeah,
thing, you have to have
yeah.
cable. So if you have cable and you check Channel 27, you'll see, I know the library does some programs over there, and I think the senior
It just
center
seems
has.
like a lot of money for that stuff.
Are we required
I know this.
to broadcast on cable TV, the town, like?
No. Well, I mean, we have it on YouTube. We have it in other forums. But I think it might be a requirement if they it doesn't have to be the only forum. But it is, part of that, because a lot of times this just wasn't highlighted. This was all in the general fund. Nobody even really thought about it, and
I just curious the cost of it, if the contractor were paying double what it used to be, and
well, he's doing more. So it's not like we're paying him double. He's doing more broadcasting.
that's.
So he's hourly.
Yeah. And
Well, I'm just
just,
saying versus like, how many people are watching on cable TV versus how many people are watching on Zoom versus how many people are watching that within the next 7 days on YouTube, right?
no, you're absolutely right. I actually mentioned to Bob our conversation, because he negotiated the contract here with Comcast, about maybe other streaming services. And I know when I negotiated Falmouth, it is a conversation to have. But I will tell you, Comcast is giving us the money to do this. So this isn't like taxpayer funded. So if you didn't have the contract for Comcast, you wouldn't be doing all of this, because they're
Yeah.
paying for it
Yeah,
through the cable bill.
through taxes.
Through our.
I'm paying them so they can give the town a portion.
I just,
Have cable.
as a town, we should say to ourselves, okay, eventually Channel 8 will no longer. No one's gonna watch it eventually, at some point.
Yeah.
Right, and that day's coming sooner than we probably all want to admit, so.
I will tell you, again, this is just my experience negotiating Falmouth, not Yarmouth. That is a big discussion. And so what they say, they know that that's coming, right? So they try to give us less money. So I'm on the other side of the table. You know what I mean? In negotiating, because there's still a lot of people that want to watch cable. But they know it's coming. I think the next 10-year contract's gonna look probably a lot different because a lot more people are streaming and people, you see it all the time.
Yeah.
Cut that cord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's gonna
Worth
be,
it.
I mentioned it to Bob, and it will be a good conversation, you know, in a few years to start talking to him is, you know, how are these negotiations going? What can we do? But they do fund this solely through, you know, the cable bill.
I was, a long time, I was on the board of a media technology fund that was funded by cable. And they brought it, they took the cable, the stuff we're talking about, Channel 8 and 9, they took it down to a minimum, took the proceeds and if you gave it out to nonprofits in the city, as long as they were using the money to, with kids, with high schools and things of that nature,
Yeah.
educational purposes. And it was a great program and it really worked out beautifully. And I mean, and that was a long time ago because like you said, a lot of people aren't watching, you know, those stations anymore.
And there's, again, assuming that we approve the budget, if they have ways to change things in the interim before the contract comes up, that's their prerogative too. So,
I really think that in the next 5 or 10 years, hopefully cable on the Cape will go away and we'll have more Starlink or whatever the heck else. I mean, cable is a dated, to me, it's a dated application, that's all.
hey, Courtney. So Courtney saw that on our agenda, I just wanted to brief everybody on that other item at the end of the thing.
Yeah.
So, but we slowed down a little bit from
Oh,
our
no,
process.
I'm
here.
interested to see what's going on.
Okay, good. Sir.
Last question on cable. Well, my last question on cable. Boy, put us in a ditch. So is that 1,700,867, is that sitting there now?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not part of this.
Okay. Thank you.
And what we don't spend, you
Stays
know, and
there.
if the revenue comes in higher, you know, that will all go to the reserve.
It rolls.
Yeah,
It will?
Yep. Yeah, it's not use it or lose it.
Thank you.
It's-
yeah.
Okay. Is there any further discussion or do I hear a?
Richard's like, let's vote.
I was just supposed to. Well, you know, it gets to the point. Well, I do need a motion to, would somebody kindly,
I'll move it.
Mr. Gutierrez,
Absolutely.
do I hear a second?
Okay.
Mr. Harding. Since we have beaten this one to death, roll call vote. John,
Aye.
Nate, George,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Raphael.
My knob doesn't go to channel 8 anymore.
Okay,
Aye.
and I am I as well, carry 6-0. Next up is Article 9, the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District. Again, we were just simply waiting for numbers to be finalized.
Yes, so we have preliminary numbers that were in there, and I think you know, we presented it, and then Dennis, the town of Dennis had been working with the school district and came to an agreement that the school district is gonna be using part of their E&D to pay off the high school bond. There was 1 year left of principal and interest on the high school. And so that decreased our capital budget, it was about 250 something thousand. So that's the new capital budget, FY 26 number.
Right, and this did come in slightly below what our original guesstimates were in the budget, so everything.
But I do want to mention, this is an important distinction. When you look at your capital budget for Dennis Yarmouth and for the Cape Cod Tech, that's debt. And that debt is raised over Proposition 2.5. So if that goes down by 250,000, your assessment will go down by 250,000, but also your revenue will go down by 250,000 because that's excluded debt that you're raising. So it doesn't really have an effect on,
The budget per se.
yeah.
So, any questions on this one? Here.
I'll move it.
Okay, Mr. Anderson? Well, you're a second.
I'll second.
Nate? Roll call vote. John?
Aye.
Nate? George?
Aye.
Bob? Raphael?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, carries 6-0. Next up is Article 19, capital expense various departments. The only topic that we had not really addressed in this article was the specific regarding line item 19, the Chase Brook Park. And the question there was the numbers didn't quite match up to the CMP, the CIP. And so I did visit briefly with Karen Green, who provided us, and George, you should have a copy of this as well. So the spreadsheet that she provided has 3 parts to it. The top part is what's in the various buckets on the warrant. And so including the one that is in the 373,150 that is in the capital budget. There's also CPA funds that are involved. One of the things that she noted is there's 2 areas of concern. One is if there was, we've already been awarded a grant, a federal grant, that's called the SWIG. You have to make these things up. And under the current challenges in Washington, so she also developed a contingency plan if the grant that has been awarded isn't paid. So she already has a contingency for that. And then there was another piece if the CIP, if this article didn't get approved, then she had another contingency as well. So what I appreciate about this, A, is that she had gone to, I think, a level of detail that is very impressive. And also that she had already pre-developed programs. And one of the things that you'll see in the Community Preservation Act numbers, she's put in $820,000 into that line item with the hope that when the SWIG comes in, that they won't spend that money and that item would basically be returned to the Capital Preservation Act funds. Long-winded explanation, but there you go.
So the Chase Brook Park, that's where Rascals used to be, I think.
It's what, yeah, it's the old Yankee Village, yeah.
So I saw something, the total budget is $1.8 million. Is that
One
correct?
point, yeah, I think if you look at the acquisition, so look at the spreadsheet there. It has all that gory detail. So the original acquisition was 949,000. There's some engineering work. And then there's 2 additional bits. One is obviously doing the actual construction, including this pedestrian bridge. So there's a bridge that's gonna link pieces of it. So so if you add up all of those bits, so you have to add up the acquisition, the design and engineering, plus the construction, 2 construction pieces to get the total. But yes, you are correct.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And why would they have to acquire it? It was always a town-owned property, no?
No, so that goes back a long time.
Yeah.
So it was
called Chase Park. right?
it was acquired, the original property was acquired. Oh, gosh,
A while ago.
it was a while ago, like 10 years, for $1 million. And we got grants for that. So that was the other piece of it. The original CPA budget, or the original budget for the acquisition was 975, but they got a subsequent grant that reduced the amount of the basically the borrowing or the authorization that we had. So a lot of good things have happened in this particular project in terms of outside funding to help mitigate the direct taxpayer cost.
But it's CPA money, correct?
So there's a combination of CPA money plus grants, plus the SWIG. The biggest one there is the SWIG, the federal grant. Mr. Gutierrez.
Okay, so Article 19, we're gonna get we're gonna get 3,521,289 out of free cash,
Correct.
okay? So two-part question, where are we gonna get the 1,100,000? And is that 1,100,000 to cover the DP, line item 3, roadway improvements for DPW?
Yes, you are correct. And that 1 so you're gonna have the 3.5 million from free cash. The 1.1 is raise and appropriate, which is your tax levy. There was an override that was passed several years ago for $1.1 million for roadway improvements. So every year you'll see a $1.1 million appropriation for roadway improvements because of that override.
Right, the assumption is it's a recurring expense that needs recurring revenues. But it's still in the capital.
Reoccurring in perpetuity, or is there,
No, it's reoccurring in perpetuity. And the reason why that you see that, I mean, you bring up a good question, Raphael, because it was an override. You do see it on the capital because the capital budget committee does review it every year. So I think they have a larger discussion with DPW about their road improvements. And so I think they might have a plan. And so they know 1.1 million is coming from the override. That's why it's written that way, from raise and appropriate. Sometimes I think they might appropriate more than that, depending on where they're at with their road maintenance. But it's a capital budget discussion, but that is, but it is in perpetuity. It is every year. The voters voted for that to increase their taxes by $1.1 million. So we will always funnel that to DPW. You just see it in the capital because of the larger discussion.
so it is being seen and discussed in capital.
Right,
We see it here.
yeah.
And all these smart civil engineers and folks in highway are baking both budgets together and how they lay out their work.
Yeah, well, this is exactly. A lot of times when you see an override, you will see it in the operating budget, like when we do the fire department, right? We have a separate article, if it passes, you'll see that fire department budget increase, and then your tax levy increases. We separate this out because it's capital and it should be a larger discussion, but it is supported by taxes.
I think you
Does that
answered the
make sense?
question. This is for real work.
Oh, yeah.
This is not for salaries or.
Oh, no.
OpEx.
No,
Okay.
that's why it's in the capital.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
It didn't get buried in the operating budget.
Awesome, thank you.
So, are there any other questions related to this? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Do we know what the maintenance costs of this would be if it passes?
Maintenance cost of,
The upkeep of the park?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. It's another $44,000
$44,000.
per year.
I find that hard to believe.
That's,
It's pretty low.
but it's a 3-acre site. And it's comparable to, the estimates that they have, and it does not have bathroom facilities. It doesn't have a lot of other things. So that is the last estimate that I heard from, Mr. Colby was, about 44,000.
You understand why we'd be a little bit cynical, right? Because for 3 years, we've.
Thank you.
I got it. I got it.
I don't mean to be a jerk, and I, but
No.
that's that one issue.
We
I have a problem
heard
with. That's it.
50,000 for 3 years, and then we had the DPW manager tell us 93.
Yep.
Okay. I'll stand down.
So,
Gentlemen, do I hear, Mr. Perkins had originally, moved this article, but we forced him off the table. Mr. Perkins, do you want to remove this item?
I'll be happy to.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gutierrez. Any other discussion? Hearing none. John,
Aye.
Nate, George,
Aye.
Bob,
I respectfully pass.
okay, abstain, yep.
Aye.
Stay.
I will say aye as well, so 501. Okay, moving right along. Next up is Article 25. And the reason that Article 25 was on the radar screen was related to Article 25, Item D, Chase Brook Park. Which we just, so that's why I had asked Karen to provide all that detail to us. Is there any other questions related to this then? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to recommend?
I'll move it.
Mr. Perkins? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Anderson? Further discussion? Hearing none. John?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Mr. Perkins? Bob?
Abstain.
Okay. Raphael?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, next up is the two new things that we haven't seen before. One is Article 33, which is the Natural Resource Officer's Pension. And this probably needs, because you are the one who talked about all of the financing for this, so I'll let you.
I really didn't. I know about this, but I can kind of give you a general overview of what they're trying to do. This would be special legislation, so the Department of Natural Resources, there's a few of them in Massachusetts, and with all the new recertification, you know, the police officers have to be certified. Now, DNR has to be certified. They do carry. And they have to go through the same process. So what they're asking, generally, municipal employees are under what's called Group 1 for retirement benefits. So they're asking to be moved to Group 4, which is, it's a public safety group. It increases their pension. You know, there's different provisions under Mass General Law, Chapter 32. So I'm sure that there's other departments and so the police officers are Group 4. And it's in the explanation.
Yep.
Might explain it a little bit better. So they're asking to be moved from Group 1 to Group 4, which I think, you know, that has different age not requirements, but different age, different percentage, you know, Group 1, when you retire, they take your highest 3 years. And it's, you know, an age factor that increases in your length of employment in a municipality. I don't have the Group 4 in front of me, but it's better than Group 1. Because they're public safety and they have a higher risk.
Any questions on this one?
Yeah, so what are we voting on this one for?
It does have an implication, so it will increase over time the pension cost.
So do we have do we have an estimate? Do we have a forecast? Do we have a curve? Any?
No,
Right.
it's difficult to really try to, so every other year we have an actuarial study, and it's based on payroll. So when this passes, this, you know, becomes, you have, you know, they're part of your payroll. And then they will do an actuarial assessment on, and it's only 4 people, I think, so it's
Mhm.
not like a ton of money. But, and then there's an unfunded liability that's a portion of our retirement. So, and this, you know, again, this has to be passed by the legislature in order to move them from Group 1 to Group 4.
That was my question is why isn't it? Are we ahead of the game or?
What do you mean?
I think what John is saying is, we don't know the financials yet. We don't even know if this is going to pass the
Right.
legislature. So should we say that this is not applicable because we don't know if it's an issue yet.
Yeah, I think our dots are pretty close, if not connected. The article is petition for special legislation relative to Division of Natural Resources to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to petition the Massachusetts General Court.
Right.
So,
We got no skin in the game right now.
And I will tell you, if it passes, I mean, you're not gonna be voting on anything more. You'll vote on the retirement assessment. You probably won't even see it. The retirement assessment comes in every year
That's what it says.
as part of, everybody.
Yeah.
And it's for people. But I don't have a cost to it.
so I will sense of the committee that we should just mark this down. It's not skin in our game quite yet.
I mean, maybe we're just making a big mountain out of a point of order here, but I just don't see, okay, go ahead and petition the Massachusetts General Court.
Do I hear a motion to recommend Article number 33?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We may not know what the future actuarial assessments might be, but do we know what the difference in the current one will be with and without this provision?
George, this didn't really come by me. This was something that DNR has proposed to the select board. So I didn't, I haven't talked to the Barnstable County Retirement
Oh,
Board
okay, all right. all right.
based on current,
Yeah, okay,
current discount rate and things like that.
okay.
So do I hear a motion to recommend this article, or are we just going to say that it's not in our scope?
I'll move it. I support, petitioning Massachusetts General Court for special legislation, but
Okay,
I.
do I hear a second?
Second,
Mr. Harding? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Nate?
aye,
George?
All right,
Bob?
aye.
I am I as well.
Aye.
Oh, Raphael, I'm sorry. I got
Wow.
ahead of myself. Woo. Just blew right past him.
I think I'm gonna stop talking.
Last up is the Hero Act property exemption. And again, this one you do know
Yeah, this
because
one I do know, got involved in this. So legislation was passed called the HARO Act, and there's several aspects to this legislation. One in particular affects municipalities. There's two, I don't know if anybody saw the presentation to the board, but there's two clauses in Mass General Law that you can accept. One is a cost of living increase, and the other one is to increase the exemption. And I should back up. And right now, veterans, if you qualify, receive certain exemptions on their property taxes. And so what the HARO Act did is it doubled the amount of exemptions that veterans currently do have. And it also has a provision for a cost of living increase on the exemptions that veterans get at this time. And so we discussed this with the select board. If we were to adopt, and I'm going to give you the full thing. So if we were to adopt both clauses, one would cost 150,000, because right now we have 150,000 in veterans exemptions. So if they doubled it, it would be an additional 150,000. It's not something you appropriate, it's something that you raise on your tax recap because it's the allowance for abatements. And then there's the other provision of a cost of living, which is 7,500. So when we were discussing it with the select board, this came in so late with the budget process. There's no room in the budget to put 150,000 if the select board so chose to do that, but they decided to put this in. We have enough money in the overlay allowance for abatements for a cost of living increase will be about 7,500 a year for the veterans, and that they are going to discuss it, I think, with their goals for FY 27. And is this a priority for the select board? And then at least we can incorporate, you don't have to adopt it at 100%, at 150,000, you could do 50%, which would be 75, you could do less. And so that will be a discussion for the FY 27 budget.
So this proposal is $7,500.
So Jen, can I ask you, what's your opinion in terms of the impact it has on the budget?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I made a recommendation of, if you wanted to do something, adopt the cost of living. We do have enough money in the allowance for abatement account for the 7,500 a year. We couldn't do 100%. I mean, you could, but you'd have to take it from somewhere. It really is a priority of the select board, because when you think about it, it's 150,000 a year and it competes with every other service, that we have. We have fire, police, DPW. And so it really is a policy of the select board. If this is something that they feel that this is a high priority for them, then we'll try to, we can work something into the budget, but it's really gonna be a policy decision. But right now, I think this is the best
Okay.
best we can do this late in the game.
At the presentation, our county commissioner for Veterans Affairs, which we're a member of that group, appreciated the challenge that the legislature gave all the towns to figure out a way of funding this after they gave themselves a good pat on the back for doing it. And he said that, he would obviously fight for as much as he could, but he thinks that he was supportive of this approach as well.
Well, if I were king, I'd take all the Chase Park money and put it into this.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
thank
A
you.
little biased though.
Okay, and on that note, do I hear a motion to recommend Article number 34?
I'll absolutely move this one.
Okay, Mr. Gutierrez,
Second.
Anderson. I'm guessing I know what the vote is going to be on this one. John,
Aye.
Nate, George,
I,
Bob,
Hi.
Aye.
and you're an aye as well, so 6-0. And that concludes our work on the articles. And apparently I missed up because George had sent me a draft of the report, which I did not get into the packet for tonight's discussion.
No.
My bad. So we still have time to do that, but George, why don't you just give us a quick overview of where we stand on the process?
okay, I guess there's been some confusion over the time I've been on the board as to whether our report is sort of a description of what we do for the year or what we're charged to do, which is advise the town meeting about why we have voted the way we have on each of the articles. And I chose the latter. So, I found it useful for each of you to tell me several meetings ago what your priorities were. And I used that, first of all, to figure out, well, what did we do this year? And I guess because I deferred to the second approach, that is, defend our votes for various articles, especially our votes for the budget and capital budget articles. So having said that, out of the information you gave me, I come up with an idea that, look, almost every one of the issues that you mentioned to me, and every time we look at something, I can put those into three basic categories. One having to do with the financial stability of the town. The next one having to do with the workforce that produces the services the services the town provides to its residents. And the third category being the resources and the capital stock that are used to produce those. And so I essentially argued that what we're doing here is using those as a basic guideline. And I suppose that comes out of my trying to defend the only real aberration in the budget this year, that is the cause for the override, which is being pointed to as caused by the fire department's need for hiring people. So there's an argument that we have to worry about recruiting, training, and maintaining our labor force. And that's really what we were doing here. It seemed the chief was arguing in the fire department that he's got a morale problem because they're spread so thin. There's a public safety problem because they're spread so thin. You can't be in two places at once. So that's sort of caused me to go to that, let's say, overarching framework for the argument, and really to support the fire department's request for hiring 4 more people and equipping them, even though that's going to blow through their 2.5% of the budget and puts the overall budget well over. So having said that, I thought that was a useful way to organize our argument in terms of those 3 overarching principles. Consider, although I don't say this explicitly, much of the other cause for any increase this year is the result of needing to keep employees, trained and compensated. Essentially, the results of union negotiations for compensation. So that essentially is why I went with that approach. Why did we vote for the articles we voted for? And I essentially argued there was a need to retain, train, and recruit, not recruit, but recruit, train, and retain employees to build our workforce or sustain our workforce or improve our workforce. Essentially, the same argument is made for the capital stock, both our natural resources and all the other equipment that we buy as capital. For the same reason, we've got to keep up to date. We can't be using outdated equipment. We need to, if not be on the cutting edge, at least have an efficient operation, and we need the tools to do that. And similarly, I included in that group of tools, if you will, our natural resources. And that's the whole reason we're undertaking the sewer project. And then finally, the issue of stability. That is, we have to worry about reserving enough for the future. So, the question that comes up, how do you, apply free cash? Do you just spend it all on every project that comes before the Capital Budget Committee until free cash runs out? Or does there need to be some triage about what gets spent? And more importantly, a portion of that be reserved, put in a stabilization fund or put in a reserve fund. And we have a dedicated amount, percentage of some of the overall budget for which that's accomplished every year. So again, using those 3 basic pillars, I made an argument to support each of the articles, or
So,
essentially described our votes as falling into those 3 pillars.
so I will forward that on to the committee as a whole as soon as I can. We still have time, in a perfect world, I would have perhaps, and I may be in touch with you guys over the next several days, because in a perfect world, I would like to see if we could potentially get this over to the select board by their meeting, which is coming up on Tuesday. At least where we are right now. And I don't think, the work that George has done, I think you'll see the logic.
Sure.
Okay. Finance director update, the very, very, very busy finance director update.
I don't have, I've just been moving budget forward, getting ready to borrow $16 million, working on that, have a ratings call on Friday. So I've been very, very busy. At a conference next week to keep my certification. And then we have town meeting. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
It's amazing. Yeah, so we'll stay in touch, obviously, as you're out in your training thing. Any questions? Nate?
I wrote you the other day from Aruba.
Oh, about the school food.
The school food budget right now, they get $2 million.
Yeah, between
From-
state and federal grants, they get $2 million. Basically, food service, as John pointed out
Yeah,
last week, was
yeah,
is provided free for all students regardless of need.
yeah. But if this $2 million goes away, does the town have to pick up, or should the town pick up or try to assist so that the kids still get lunch?
So there's two parts to that. And so there's two parts to that. One is, there's been no firm indication that this is going to be an issue at this point. I mean, it could be, so it's in that theoretical category. The portion that is we're subsidizing the portion of the kids who do not satisfy the needs requirement. So in theory, that would sort of drop that down from 2
Yeah.
million to something less than 2 million.
Yeah.
And there's also the question about whether the state would step in. Up until this point, the state has been very insistent. In fact, they were the ones who said, we will provide additional grants
Yeah,
so that we don't have to make that distinction at the classroom, which obviously makes it easier to administer because everybody gets it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just saying, should we be thinking about that in the back of our heads?
not
And
quite,
could the town even do anything because we have this budget?
Let me just step in here for a second. First of all, we have an assessment to the school, so the school gives us an assessment, right?
Yeah.
Just a couple thoughts. If it went back to the way it was, then students would start paying and that would support the expense for the
yeah.
school lunch. And then you have like a sliding fee scale, and then you'll always probably get some state money. I've never seen school lunch be part of your tax base. I don't know, maybe it will change in the
Yeah.
future, but I don't think it's anything really I mean, until you have hard facts,
yeah.
it's really,
a
I wouldn't worry
hypothetical.
about it.
It's a
It really
It's a
is.
hypothetical
Yeah.
at this point.
Hypothetical, this,
Yeah.
just throwing
Good
it
question,
out there.
though.
No, it definitely is.
So,
Okay.
Well, that's a very good response, that you've never seen it incorporated into a tax base is good news.
yeah,
So let's not set the precedent.
I don't, and let me just say, I don't believe so. I say that because I know it's always been a separate fund. Now, where there's some costs in the
Mhm.
operating budget that I
Mhm.
didn't see and didn't know about, because I'm not on the school side,
Yeah.
possibly. But I know that, students used to pay for their lunch and that went in the fund and that helped support that service.
Okay,
so moving on to the next agenda item, which is minutes. 4 sets of minutes were included in your packet. Anybody want to,
Actually, they were very well written. I actually did have an opportunity to actually sit and read through quite a few. We cover a lot of ground in these meetings.
we do.
Holy Toledo.
I'll move all 4.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Gutierrez. Any other discussion? Hearing none. John,
Aye.
Nate, George,
Aye.
Bob,
Hey,
Raphael?
Aye.
I'm not as well. So, next up is, I did want to sort of bring everybody's attention to the Cape Cod Tourism Marketing District petition. This was a, so the CEO of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce came in to speak with the select board last meeting. And again, I believe I forwarded the packet to you. And the essence of it was, they have already been in communication or have been talking with the 12 largest hotel operators here in Yarmouth, 11 in Barnstable, and 5 in Falmouth. Those are the largest number of beds, so a significant number of the hotel beds. And this group can be under Chapter 40X, can set up a fund where their guests pay an extra surcharge, and they're going to recommend a 1.5% room tax rate increase that will be used and would be under the control of a group of business people that would set the priorities for the marketing of the Cape, if you will, more broadly. They identified this as a concern. There's I'm going to get my numbers wrong, 205 other towns and communities around the country that have adopted this approach. And part of the reason that they've done it is the traditional state approach has been relatively, hasn't been aggressive enough, in their opinion. And they believe that it is better to try to get all boats to rise and be more assertive relative to specifically the Cape. And they were citing concerns with some potentially disinformation about the impact of the bridge project on getting to the Cape as one of the things that they're already hearing. Obviously, the other concern that they have is sort of the bigger tourism pots that are available. So the traditional thing is just come to the beach. They're saying that there's a lot of other ways that you can promote your product, historic, cultural, and other ways that they think that the Cape is missing. And again, absent funding for this in a consistent and predictable level of funding. So they have, I don't know if they've already delivered the petition, but they basically had done all the legwork and were coming to the board to let them know that they are going to petition the board to allow this to move forward as permitted by the statute. So that's what I just want to give you guys that heads up. Now, interestingly, of course, we do have our own economic development funds. And Courtney had actually sent a note in along with it, that was part of the package, which I included in my notes to you, and she had some concerns. So I don't know if you would be interested in learning more about this, or if you've had it for the evening, but
Yeah, so my first question, I'm sorry, did
yeah, I
you
would.
say the hotel industry has supported the concept?
So the way it
Courtney?
kind of works is that, so the tourism destination marketing district, the Cape Cod Chamber would be the managing entity. It's kind of a multi-step process, where they have determined what makes hotels eligible. So I guess to back it up, this legislation was passed in 2021. It's now 2025. And I believe the chamber started to do some of their work on getting their sort of board of directors involved in this in 2022, 2023. They could have done a region-wide approach where, you know, it's just the whole region opts into it, or they can go town by town. But essentially, the numbers are that there's 176 properties on Cape Cod that are eligible, which the chamber has determined eligible to be, and I'm gonna be frank, I have heard anywhere from 15 to 85 rooms. So you can either, so, you know, the articles I read were, he presents Harwich, Eastham and Orleans in 2024, a year ago. They were all told, any hotels that have 15 rooms or more. He came to us last week and said 85 rooms. So I'm not quite sure what this eligibility is that's being determined on who's eligible. Short-term rentals are not included. Bed and breakfasts are not included. But 62% of these 176 properties need to say that they want to participate, and this thing is kind of off to the races. Towns can, the petition with the town is basically on behalf of these hotels to say that the town supports joining this district. But it's not really the select board doesn't really have a vote in it. It's just kind of a support and letting the public know. I will say Eastham was not in support of it. He was supposed to go back to them. I don't have any data that he did go back to them with more info. Harwich and Orleans were in support of it. I don't know where, unfortunately, there is no information on the chamber website in terms of which towns have said yes, where they are in their processes. And so it's really hard to determine kind of where we're at in terms of what this is looking like. According to the calculations of the number of rooms, 9 of the 15 communities are eligible. And in some reports, the other 6 would not benefit from this at all. Which I don't understand if it's a whole Cape-wide marketing district, why we would exclude the 6 just because they don't have the hotels. I know that he's going to meet with Brewster in about a month. They only have one hotel, Ocean Edge, that would qualify under this, who, last I checked, has a very large billboard on 93 heading into Boston. So I'm not sure that they need any help getting people to Brewster or Ocean Edge. So my sort of concerns with it were, there's supposed to be a marketing plan. I don't know what that plan is. I don't know who we intend to use these funds to market to, how the funds are intended to be used. 75% of the funds are supposed to be for special events and marketing. And there's some talk about subsidized, like gift certificates, where we would subsidize a gift certificate for for somebody visiting Yarmouth to go have dinner in Provincetown. I don't quite understand how that all works. There's a little bit of pushback from some of our seasonal hotel people saying, I don't have the infrastructure or the staffing to extend my season any longer. And there was no room for them on this management entity committee. And so, you know, I'm hoping that their voice is being heard, but I'm not sure. And then my concern really is with the numbers. And the question was asked by Tracy Post of, you know, at what point do people say, I've had enough of these surcharges, I'm not coming to Yarmouth anymore? Studies show it's 20%. We had the surcharge, we're at 16. You all know the economic landscape we're in and where the funds are coming from the federal and state government. I'm not comfortable personally with having a 16% surcharge when, you know, at the state level, at least, we have this new Municipal Empowerment Act coming down the pike, which allows us to increase our meals and rooms taxes to actually benefit the town. Like this money, once it's surcharged to them, it goes back to the chamber. We don't see any of it until these people start actually coming back to Yarmouth and putting their heads in beds to say. And then we would see an increase. You know, I think obviously there's benefits to getting more people here on the Cape because these surcharges we are putting on them, you know, they help support our Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, which we need to focus on because the state has changed the play on that. And there's definitely benefit to getting people here for the, you know, the tourism part of it. But I feel like we're having a lot of parallel discussions on trying to get away from being so dependent on the 6 months of the year and then extending this shoulder season in the tourism economy. I wonder too, if we keep increasing hotel room rates, does that make people keep turning to short-term rentals? And then do we just keep seeing the perpetual cycle of more short-term rentals popping up and losing homes and that whole deal? So those are some of my baseline concerns. And then I just have a lot of general questions on what this exactly is. There's really no information out there on what this is. In his presentation, he gave several examples of other districts, none of which I would say are comparable to Cape Cod at all. I haven't seen one that is an area anywhere like us, and some of these numbers are quite outdated. They're from 2021 and 2022. So there's a lot of questions. So, you know, the next step for us, at least, I don't know if the petition's been filed. I imagine it would, because he was very quick to say that they could start collecting on this July 1 if this petition gets filed, which, you know, is unfortunately tight turnaround for our town clerk, because we'd have to hold the public hearing by March 1, a week right around town meeting. And so in order to start collecting on these room rates July 1, the petition has to be filed, the public hearing has to be held, and then all that needs to be certified to the Department of Revenue. The other option is to start collecting in October. The select board seemed in favor of moving this quicker to get the fees collected in July, so I'm not quite sure.
Really?
Yeah.
They seem
Oh,
amenable to it.
Yeah, yeah. This is a policy thing for the select board, not for us. So I just want to, but I did want to bring it to our collective attention because it's an interesting issue. But Jennifer,
No, I just want to mention that there was a presentation to the select board and that I think that if there's opposition to it, it really belongs at the select board level.
Right.
It really doesn't belong
Yeah.
at the finance committee
Right.
level.
No.
I mean, you guys can all hear it. I'm just saying, you know,
I tried to
for
make
you-
a public comment that night and I was not
Yeah,
acknowledged, which
But-
was fine. So I'm sort of, Richard and I talked. I think it is for the select board. I fully intend to go to the public hearing and make these thoughts known.
okay, great.
This is not for me to oppose it here. It's more of an information for you all because honestly, there is no information out there.
And my only thing is that I don't think the finance committee saw the original presentation, so I think it's hard to really gather about what's going on. You have to see the original presentation to the board. And then, and then you'll understand the opposition. If, and I'm not saying you not to listen to it. I'm just saying that, there was a presentation to the board and the board said, bring it back, but I don't think there was a vote that night
No,
or
there was no
anything
vote.
like that. So I just want to be clear.
There wasn't
It was,
a vote needed.
it was right, but it was a presentation to the board. It was informational to the board.
so again, just was one of those things that I thought again, just as it was a very relevant thing because it does tie into our long-term
Sure.
finances.
So whatever it's worth, I just, in full disclosure, I'm involved with, I'm active in the chamber here in Yarmouth. And it was brought up a year ago or so, when there was discussion, when the whole idea about the DIF financing
Yeah.
and what have you. And then somebody brought this up and the response, that's why when Richard said to me, I said, the response was pretty negative. At least like 2 or 3 hotel people were saying, well, we can only take so much before people just won't show up on the Cape.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was their final decision, but that was the response that this idea, because I was kicking around, I guess, and, so Richard told me, I didn't even know it's gone this far. But, so I can't tell you other than I did hear some significant hotel people, they're kind of like, I can't take any more of this,
Yeah.
I don't-
So I'm looking forward to the public hearing and getting more information, just to see what this is all about, because I just don't understand it.
I would say, I encourage you to keep digging because there's 2 or 3 red flags in what you've just framed up here. We're close to pricing ourselves out of business already as a state in general. We're
Yeah.
the 4th highest state living in the country,
Yeah.
okay? What I've heard anecdotally is that bookings are down so far this season on the
Yeah.
Cape, okay? The economy's not getting any traction, right now. It may in a little bit, but, we're passing on, vendors and restaurateurs and other folks have to pass on, what they've been hit with increases to their guests. So at some point you do price yourself out of business.
Yeah, and I think my thing with coming to you all specifically was, consideration of where we're at with these
Sure.
option taxes. And getting us, making sure that we stay at a comfortable place, because if this Municipal Empowerment Act does pass and the town chooses to opt into either of these 2 increases, it's from 6 to 7% for lodging and 0.75 to 1% for meals taxes, those are things that come back to us. And like you said, we have a tourism revenue preservation fund that kind of does this at our own level, that we're working through right now. We met last night to look at reissuing that contract and developing a bigger marketing campaign. But we just don't know what any of this regional stuff looks like.
What was East Ham's reasons for opting out or shutting it down immediately?
They were unsure that there would be adequate staffing for these hotels, and the infrastructure. East Ham has a lot of seasonal hotels. And so like a lot of those rooms just aren't winterized. And what does that mean for hotel owners to have to update their infrastructure and the cost?
So it requires year round?
It doesn't require year round, but it's heavily discussing extending the shoulder season and bringing people here longer.
So
Thank you.
again, we don't set policy, but an interesting topic. So, gentlemen and lady, we have worked through our agenda. Are there any other comments or concerns?
Well done, Mr. Chair.
Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Here it's Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Nate? John?
I,
Nate?
Aye.
George?
I,
Bob?
Hi.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. At 7:20, I promised 7:15.
Not bad.
Thank you.
better than 2 weeks ago.
I'll take it.
the US Naval Observatory clock says it's 7:19.
Oh,
Hang around every time we.
well, you know, in that case, I'll give myself an extra pat on the back.